This evening, 2.1, we would address any changes to the agenda and approval of the agenda. Section 3 will be recognitions, and tonight we do have 3.1, recognition of Okaloosa County School District for the anti-vaping campaign presented by Elizabeth Smith, Health Officer, CHD Administrator, Florida Department of Health in Okaloosa County. And 3.2, we will have recognition of Whitney Walker, Baker School, recipient of the Florida Prepaid Superintendent Scholarship. I believe this is the inaugural one.
Yes, ma'am.
Presented by our superintendent. And then section 4, exciting that we have some appointments tonight. 4.1, appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month to Floresa Elementary School, recommended by the superintendent for approval. 4.2 will be appointment of Assistant Principal 1, 10-month, Baker School, recommended for approval. 4.3 will be appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 10-month, to Eglin Elementary. And 4.4 will be appointment of Principal, Longwood Elementary School. Section 5, public comment, blue card version, that will be agenda items only. Section 6, committee and staff reports, workshop only, Destin High School, Inc., charter school and component unit of the School District of Okaloosa County, Florida, financial statements with independent auditors' reports presented by Julie Perry. Section 7, consent agenda. 7.1 would be approval of the agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of May 22nd, minutes of the regular meeting of May 22nd, recommended for approval. 7.3, appropriation of District 1 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Okaloosa STEM Academy for classroom flooring in the amount of $4,000, presented by Dr. White. 7.4, appropriation of District 2 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Destin Elementary School for cafeteria tables in the amount of $16,877.98, presented by Marty Gardner. 7.5, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Bob Sykes Elementary School for flooring in the office hallway and 2 classrooms in the amount of $16,806.56, presented by Tim Bryant. 7.6, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Okaloosa STEM Academy for classroom flooring in the amount of $2,175.01, presented by Mr. Bryant. 7.7, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Okaloosa STEM Academy for classroom paint in the amount of $1,920, presented by Mr. Bryant. 7.8, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Silver Sand School for an interior room partition in the amount of $4,960. 7.9, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Okaloosa STEM Academy for classroom flooring in the amount of $12,000. 7.10, appropriation of District 5 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Okaloosa STEM Academy for a new electronic sign in the amount of $16,585.
And Madam Chair, I just want to say, as we get to the end of this school year, I just want to thank each of you school board members for utilizing your capital outlay funds in ways that really help and support our schools. You know, the agenda item is one thing, but it's the conversations that each of you have with the principals, and sometimes it's multiple conversations so you can get a clear picture of what they're trying to accomplish. But this is just another layer of helping our schools, and just appreciate what each of you do and the time that you put into this.
Thank you. And I know I can speak for all of our comrades here that being able to help the principals and the schools and the campuses, particularly during the summer as they prepare for fall return for students is really amazing, and it's really an honor to do that. 7.11, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of instructional materials for secondary science and career and technical education, reproductive health, and disease education for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Tammy Ellis, Science Specialist. 7.12, request to advertise a public hearing for social studies textbook instructional materials adoption, presented by Ryan Gore. 7.13, request to advertise a public hearing for the adoption for revised School Board Policy 04-12, Student Technology Acceptable Use Policy, presented by Eric Mitchell. 7.14, request to advertise a public hearing for the adoption for revised School Board Policy 04-32, Discipline, presented by Brian Humphrey. 7.15, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of the 2023-2024 Codes of Student Conduct, Elementary and Secondary, presented by Brian Humphrey. 7.16, request to advertise a public hearing for the adoption of revised School Board Policies Chapter 5, Student Education Records, presented by Eric Mitchell.
And Dr. Kelly, those last several items, just want to take a moment to thank different district staff. As you know, every year, new laws are created, which means things are going to have to be amended. And many laws are passed each year, and I just appreciate the district staff, Mr. McGinnis, being very diligent in going through each of these and then making sure that our documents reflect it.
Absolutely. We have to be in sync with those changes. Thank you. 7.17, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Julie Perry, Chief Financial Officer. 7.18, school donations, presented by Julie Perry. 7.19, ITB 23-07, Session Initiated Protocol, Trunk and Transport, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.20, ITB 23-08, Locksmith Services, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.21, ITB 23-09, Pest Control Services District-Wide, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.22, Tag on Bid Purchase, ITB 23024-MST-CH, Locker Purchase and Related Services, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.23, Tag on Bid Purchase over $50,000, Strategic Equipment LLC, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.24, Tag on Bid Purchase over $50,000, Train, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.25, Renewal of Tag on Bid, RFP number 190806, Speech Language Pathologist, School Psychologist, Occupational Therapist, and Physical Therapist Services, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.26, Renewal of Tag on Bid, ITB 21-968-173, Bleacher Repair and Motorization, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.27, Renewal of Tag on Bid, RFP 18-19-2, Various Equipment and Amenities for Parks and Playgrounds, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.28, Exempted Purchase over $50,000, N2Y, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.29, Agreement to grant a 15-foot wide utility easement to the City of Niceville, presented by Dr. Bill Smith. 7.30, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company a 10-foot wide utility easement at Bob Sykes Elementary School for the new cafetorium. 7.31, non-exclusive parking lot license renewal and extension agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Beachside Ministries Incorporated, doing business as Beachside Community Church. 7.32, contract agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Cambridge Assessment International Education for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Jeff Palmer. 7.33, school food service audit meal price increases effective July 1, 2023, Section 206 of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, presented by Stephen Anderson. 7.34, waiver of the OCEA master contract requested by Okaloosa Technical College to adjust the standard work week for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by John Williams. 7.35, Carl D. Perkins Post-Secondary Entitlement Grant for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by John Williams. 7.36, Adult Education Family Literacy Act Grant for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by John Williams. 7.37, State of Florida Voluntary Pre-Kindergarten Education Program Statewide Provider Agreement for fiscal year 2023-2024, presented by Deborah Hahn, Principal, Southside Primary School. 7.38, State Fire Marshal Public School Fire Safety Report System Fire Code Compliance Reports for Okaloosa County School District Facilities for 2022-2023, presented by Danny Dean. 7.39, Carl D. Perkins Secondary Entitlement Grant for fiscal year 2023-2024, presented by April Branscombe. 7.40, Title I Part A, Title II Part A, Title III Part A, Title IV Part A, and Title I Part D, Subpart 2, Florida Department of Education project application for 2023-2024, presented by Amy Dale. 7.41, K-12 Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Denise Berry. I'll just say I'm so appreciative of those of you who are doing those parts that I previously had to do. Kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. And that brings us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Information Only, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.2, Information Only, Deferred Retirement Option Program, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.3, Information Systems Department Restructure, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.4, Curriculum Department Restructure, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.5, Employee Separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, Employee Transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.8, Reinstatement, Reimbursement of Sick Leave due to Line of Duty Illness, Injury, Medical Examination, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.9, Leave Without Pay, presented by Dr. Hale. That brings us down to Section 9, Discussion Agenda. We have nothing there at this time. Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business. You know, you'll probably have something for us, Mr. Bryant.
We actually have a meeting here in about 2 hours. So.
There you go. So you have it fresh off the press
Yes,
for
ma'am.
us. Section 11 would be attorney's business tonight.
Nothing this morning.
And Section 12, superintendent's business.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few items for you this morning. And first of all, I want to say, I think it's the next school board meeting where we will look at the 2023-2024 district budgets. And one of the things I want to say is, as you might know, this is months in the making of conversations with district staff, with Ms. Perry, and with each of you as well. And I appreciate the one-on-ones that we had to talk about budgets, talk about the upcoming school year. So really looking forward to that meeting. That will be, I think, on the 26th. Also, I want to say, when you look at a school year, and this past school year is behind us now, but I want to let the board know the graduations that took place. Over 8,500 views on our online system for graduations. And I just want to thank Mr. Mitchell and his team. That takes a lot of work to get there, have everything set up so people can view that. And as you know, each year, it's not just people viewing in our county, it's people viewing all across the country and abroad. Many military families who aren't able to be here with their kids are watching those graduations. So again, thank you, Mr. Mitchell and your team, for making that an opportunity. I also want to thank Ms. Branscombe and her team. We have so many CTE camps that are occurring over the course of this summer. And I just want to share with the board just a few of them. And it's a partnership also with CTE and the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. But this is just an example, for our rising fifth graders, there's a number of opportunities. Over 200 kids are taking part in these CTE camps. And they are taking part in topics such as biomedical, robotics, welding, coding, construction, web design, cosmetology, app camp, construction again, automotive, and we are going to do culinary, but that one's kind of put to the side right now. But all those different types of programs for young students, and it helps them as they start thinking about middle school and the types of programs they want to take part in. When they start looking at high school, what type of programs they want to take part in. So sometimes people will ask me, what do we do for career and technical education? Do we have programs? And that's usually when I smile. So we have a multitude of programs starting from elementary all the way through high school. And this past week, I was at a superintendent school board annual conference meeting, and one of the topics was CTE. And they were asking school districts, what you do. And I was proud to be able to report the different types of programs that we offer here. And just a couple of highlights also, artificial intelligence and machine learning at the high school level. And that we're one of two in the state that offer that program. The nursing program that we now have in the partnership with the hospitals because of the nursing shortage. Then you look at carpentry. And what I'm most proud of is what Mrs. Branscombe always talks about, is making sure that there's a connection from what we do here to our local industry. And she does a great job with that. And those three are just highlights of the many different excellent programs that we have. So just want to thank you and your team. Also, as you know, Summer Intensive Studies is well underway. Mrs. Lightbourne and her team getting that organized, and the school principals taking on the awesome task of helping our students, one, get remediated, or two, make up course credits. As you know, at the secondary level, it's all about making up course credits. And at the elementary level, our students who are retained, or students where the school may have wishes for those students to grow some more, those students have the opportunity to take part in summer intensive studies. And that's going well. And that'll end towards the end of this month. Public safety agency tours. That's something that's a state statute that occurs annually every year. And I do want to report to you that Mr. Danny Dean is doing a great job with that. And in essence, what this means is our local agencies, such as our police departments, the sheriff's office, fire departments across the county, they all come together with the goal of orienting themselves to our campus infrastructure, our security features, and our response and recovery protocols and procedures. So this is just an example of something that's supposed to happen once every 3 years, But in our county, we do it annually with our local agencies, and it's all about making sure that you're as prepared as possible. Heaven forbid an event occurred. But I do want to thank our sheriff, our local agencies of working with us to make sure that we're all on the same page on this endeavor. I also want to share, we've talked at several board meetings about youth mental health first aid training. And there is a requirement that 80% of staff is trained over the course of a 3-year period. I am reporting to you that right now we have 88.6% of our staff trained. And just as a reminder, one trainer in essence to 30 participants. And when you have 3,500 employees and 30 in essence at a time, that takes a lot of time to get everybody trained. And also as a reminder, what this is a course that's taught by our mental health providers. It equips employees to recognize the signs of distress with students. It introduces the unique risk factors and warning signs of mental health problems in adolescence. And if you have a teacher or an administrator or an employee that's able to recognize these signs and then able to get them to our mental health counselors who can give them the support that they need or outside resources. So it's about being very keenly aware of what's happening with our students. But 88.6% of our employees trained. We have another training coming up in July. So this is a constant training that occurs throughout the school year with the goal, obviously, of getting all 100% of our employees trained. But as you know, every time there's a new employee, now that's another person to be trained. And then lastly, I just want to say that I'm looking forward to what we're referring to this year as the Leadership Huddle. It's been an admin retreat. It's been a leadership summit, but this year's theme revolves around the playbook. And so on the 29th, we'll be having the Leadership Huddle. So really looking forward to that. It'll start probably around 7:30-ish. And if any of you would like to attend like you've done in the past, whether it's the whole day or whether it's a segment, feel free to attend. Thank you.
And is that June?
June 29th
Is it at Beachside?
at Beachside.
Yes.
Oh, very good. Thank you for those comments, Superintendent.
Yes, ma'am.
That moves us down to Section 13, Board Members' Announcements and/or Requests for Information. And we have 13.1 tonight, appointments to Okaloosa County Value Adjustment Board, and 13.2, our own announcements and members' requests for information. So we'll do that now, and I'll start with Ms. Gardner.
Thank you. We have an audience full of our district employees, and I just want to thank you. I think we have 41 items on the consent agenda. You've been working really extremely hard to get everything done and ready and approved so that, Dr. Kelly, don't tell us how many days, but it will be here
I'll wait
before
till
we
tonight,
know.
Doug.
It will be here before we know it, and just thank you for everything you're doing to get things ready to start that new school year, and it's right around the corner. But thank you, and it's nice to see everybody out there, and it's Monday morning, and they're all smiling so far, so.
That's
Thank you.
good.
That's all, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, and I'll just echo what Ms. Carter just said. Thank you to staff. This was our first meeting after the end of the school year, and a lot of things are happening before July 1st, of course. And I just want to say to Mr. Chambers, thank you to you for allowing your staff to, communicate with us as diligently as they do before we have these workshops. And we already have, we get the information ahead of time, so that makes the meeting flow a lot easier. But thank you to all the staff that's out there today. Thank you for all that you do. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Dr. White.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and nothing this morning.
Okay, so I'll conclude with, I appreciate your comments, Superintendent, about the youth mental health first aid. And just so that you know, I've been very diligent with Hope Squad this last couple of weeks. I've been in Utah and Pennsylvania twice, and Tallahassee, and all for promoting youth mental health through the Hope Squad. It's such a remarkable program. But I said that to say, through that avenue of being with the Hope Squad, I get to be in a number of school districts all across the United States. And I think that I can still say, as I've said for 40 plus years now, there is no place like Okaloosa County Schools. We really are the best. In my humble opinion, and by, I believe, any matrix you want to measure us by, I think we stand out. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, and maybe you might want to make a comment towards, is I know that you mentioned budget, and we do take those budgetary items very seriously. I know it looks like from the outside sometimes, as you alluded to, Mr. Bryant, that we're going down these agenda items pretty quickly, but with the staff calling us and us having opportunity to question them and them getting back with us about comments that we might have needed, bits of information, we do make ourselves keenly aware of the behind-the-scenes actions and activities that go on before these items are voted on and approved. But the one item I wanted to bring us to was the budget. And knowing that, you mentioned that, Superintendent, that we all understood that the ESSER funds that were wonderful for us while they were flowing are going to come to an end at some point. So I appreciate understanding that behind the scenes there are activities being discussed and being looked at to set us in good stead for the day and time when that does happen. So thank you.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And we talked at each of our individual meetings. We've talked with our principals over the course of this year, and even with HR, which I'll explain in 1 second. But ESSER funds, as we know, will go away next year. So Okaloosa, just like the other 66 districts across the state of Florida that purchased certain materials, hired certain personnel, there's a strong likelihood that those positions with those dollars, they won't be there for the upcoming year. And when I say upcoming, I mean this time next year, the 24-25 school year. What I appreciate is Dr. Hale and his staff have done a great job communicating with those principals, with those employees over the course of this year. And then even through the HR process, anyone who's funded through an ESSER fund also received a letter letting them know that that position may not be there for the upcoming school year. Now, what we do know is every year we have about 200 new hires, and we will make absolutely the dedicated effort and priority to retain those employees. We feel confident that we'll be able to do that, but there will likely be some positions that we would love to have if we had the funds to be able to do so, not in the staffing pattern or not in the budgeting process for that 24-25 school year. But we will make every effort with Ms. Perry to be as judicial, as conservative as we can be with our dollars, but still try to do everything that we can to provide the needs for this school district.
And I appreciate that, especially knowing that a year out, the planning is happening and there will be no surprises. We love that, no
Correct.
surprises. Thank you for that. So that brings us down to tonight, the Section 14, the yellow card version of public comment, which would be for general comments, not necessarily related to the agenda. And tonight at 6:15, we will have public hearing for 2 items. 15.1, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 06-33, administrative leave, suspension and dismissal of employees, presented by Dr. Hale. And 15.2, public hearing for textbook instructional materials adoption, presented by Ryan Gore. And that is the official end of that part of the meeting. And so before we adjourn, is there any other comment that we need to hear from members of the district staff? No? Jordan? And I don't see Patrick. So that concludes our meeting. Thank you for your kind attendance.